Hey everyone, I'm Molly and welcome back to part 4 of this Tennessee probate and inheritance guide series. And this may be one of the most important videos yet because today we're tackling one of the toughest parts about selling an inherited property here in Tennessee, which is dealing with multiple heirs, that family conflict, and probate disputes that can derail everything. In our 8+ years of experience helping families through the probate process here in Tennessee, I've learned that the biggest challenge isn't always the court system, it's not the taxes, and it's not even the condition of the property. But more often than not, unfortunately, the real challenge is the people in this situation, the family members who can't agree on what to do with Grammy's house. I've sat at the table with siblings who haven't spoken in years, and I've seen cousins forced to make a $200,000 decision together when they couldn't even agree on when to answer each other's phone call. And I have seen families rip themselves apart over an inherited house that was supposed to bring them together in the first place. Honestly, it is truly disheartening, but this is real and it may be happening to you. And it happens every day in probate real estate across Tennessee. The good news today that I'll share with you is that there are solutions to these problems. With the right probate attorney in Tennessee, proactive communication amongst all the heirs, and mediation strategies, you can prevent most of these disasters. Most of them. So today I'll walk you through the practical options like heir buyouts, probate mediation, and step-by-step dispute resolution that protect your inheritance and keep your probate process in Tennessee moving forward. So if you're trying to figure out how to sell an inherited property in Tennessee with multiple heirs, or how to resolve family inheritance disputes, or maybe how to simply avoid probate conflict altogether, you're in the right place and this video is certainly for you. I want to make this video as practical and as real as it can get. So let's discuss Tennessee tenants in common and what it really means. Well, when you inherit a property in Tennessee with siblings or other family members, you almost always become tenants in common. And unless the will specifically says otherwise, that's the fact. It sounds pretty simple, but under Tennessee inheritance laws, this setup can create serious challenges if you don't know exactly what tenants in common means. So here's the plain English version: shared ownership. Each heir owns a percentage of the inherited property. Nobody gets the upstairs bedroom or specific piece of this land, but the whole entire property is shared amongst all of the heirs. And any heir can sell their share of the inherited house in Tennessee to someone else, even if that's an outsider, and even if you don't agree with it. So yes, that means you could suddenly co-own grandma's house with a stranger or maybe the neighbor down the street that wanted to get in that property if a sibling or an heir decides to sell their piece of the property. And any heir can file a partition action in Tennessee. That means going to court and forcing the sale of the entire property, even if everyone else wants to keep it. So if 10 of you want to keep it, but one wants to sell, they can force a partition sale. These sales often result in below market prices and usually hefty legal fees by the time you get through it. And then there are stalled sales. If all heirs don't agree, selling your property can drag on for months or years, and I have totally seen that in selling homes in probate. Just one person refusing to sign can block the entire deal and obviously cost a lot of headache. And each heir is responsible for their share of property taxes, mortgages, and upkeep. Unpaid bills can trigger liens or even foreclosure, a nightmare that can wipe out everyone's inheritance within just a couple of months. And that is why families struggle with how to sell inherited property here in Tennessee. On paper, tenants in common looks fair, but in practice, it often creates frictions, delays, and unexpected financial risks. So let's go over the 4 types of multiple heir scenarios I've seen here in Tennessee. When families inherit a house or even land together, things can get complicated really fast. And I've worked on countless cases of inherited properties with multiple heirs in Tennessee, and the patterns that I've seen come up over and over again. So let's go by them one by one. Number 1, everyone wants to sell on the surface. this should be the simplest scenario, right? But even when all the heirs agree that the inherited house in Tennessee should be sold, disagreements often do pop up over timing of the sale, price of what you want to sell it for, or whether to make those repairs or not, or even how to handle the sale. If you want to do it traditional, list it on the market, or sell it direct cash offer. Some heirs may differ on what they want to do. And small differences in opinion can create months of delay. Number two, mixed objectives. This is by far the most common situation. So some heirs want to sell immediately, others want to keep onto the property as long as possible. Maybe they want to turn it into a rental. And occasionally one heir wants to move in and make it their home. They love grandma's home and they wanted that to be theirs. While when objectives don't line up, selling a home in probate becomes a negotiation that can often feel impossible. Number three, the one holdout. And we all know someone like this. 4 heirs are ready to sell, but that one heir refuses. That one person can block the entire process, and in Tennessee, that often leads the court to action. Partition lawsuits are expensive, time-consuming, and can drain tens of thousands from the estate. This is one of the most frustrating realities of probate real estate. Number 4, communication breakdown. Sometimes the problem isn't about the property at all, it's about the people. So family with years of unresolved issues suddenly have to make big decisions together. When civil conversations aren't possible, decisions about property selling are almost nearly impossible. So here's the single biggest risk with multiple heirs. Any one of them can file a partition action in Tennessee probate court. This is a legal process to force a resolution when heirs can't agree, but it is rarely the outcome that families hope for. Trust me on this one. Here's how it works in plain English. Any co-owner can file, so no matter how small their share of the estate, any heir can file a partition lawsuit in Tennessee through the chancery or circuit court where the property is located. All heirs must be named. The petition must list every heir, their ownership percentage, and their current addresses. Even out-of-state heirs have to be tracked down and notified. Let's discuss partition in kind versus partition by sale. By law, the court first considers whether the property can be physically divided partition in kind. This is rare for single-family homes, but possible for larger tracts of land that could be subdivided. If the division isn't practical, the court orders a partition by sale, usually through public auction. The court may appoint commissioners or a neutral party to manage the process, oversee the sale, and confirm that the proceeds are distributed fairly. And after the sale, proceeds are split up according to each heir's share. But every heir is also responsible for a portion of the probate legal fees in Tennessee. Filing fees run hundreds of dollars, while legal fees often total $10,000 up to $25,000 I've seen. And here is the painful truth. Partition sales typically bring in 15 to 25% below market value as long as your home is in good condition. So not only are you paying more in fees, but you are also potentially walking away with less money from the property itself. So here's a pro tip. Before litigation, try mediation. So before filing or responding to a partition action in Tennessee, talk with a probate attorney who specializes in heir disputes. Mediation or heir buyouts or structured agreements often can save everyone time, money, and precious family relationships. Partition actions should always be the last resort in Tennessee inherited property disputes. Yes, they can force a sale and end co-ownership, but the process is costly, public, and usually leaves everyone with less than they expected. If at all possible, work toward an agreement with each other and with all the other heirs, because it does reach a point once the court gets involved, everybody could lose. So here's my proven system for handling Tennessee inherited property multiple heir situations before they explode. Step 1, the family meeting framework. So within 30 days of inheriting the property, organize a structured family meeting with who's willing to participate. Now, let me tell you, after years of helping Tennessee families with selling inherited property with disputes, I've learned that the best way to avoid a full-on family meltdown is to get ahead of the drama if you can. And it shouldn't just be a quick chat over a text or a phone call. An actual sit down in person or a video call if you're out of state with an agenda and ground rules is the key here. Here's the agenda that I will give my clients to discuss when you guys are having that meeting. Number 1, review property facts. Value, condition, carrying costs, what's the property worth, what shape is it in currently, and be realistic here. What are the monthly costs like taxes, insurance, mortgage, utilities? Are there any other costs associated with the property that you're paying on a monthly or yearly basis? And try to discuss each heir's personal situation and preferences. Present all the realistic options with pros and cons. Should you sell in the open market? Should you take a fast cash offer and sell it quickly? Should you keep it as a rental? Does one of the family members want to move in? Identify areas of agreement and disagreement. Where do you all agree? What are the biggest areas of disagreement and the biggest disagreement points? Put that down on a piece of paper, ideally on a document online that you can all review and share. Set a timeline for decision making. Try to agree on when a decision will be made. Agree on communication protocols going forward, whether that's through group text, an email thread, a monthly call, but whatever works to make sure that you are all in discussion and everything is always documented. Another key thing is when you're having those family meetings, document the call. So I like to get on Zoom or another video platform, but whatever I usually use an AI note taker. So AI note taker is for Zoom, or you can use fireflies.ai, which will automatically transcribe the conversation and can even generate action items for you. So nothing is he said and she said. I use this all the time when I'm communicating with relatives or I'm communicating with my business partner or even other sellers. It's great for accountability. Step 2, the financial reality exercise. So most families fight over inherited property in Tennessee. It comes down to, and I hate to say it, money, specifically not understanding the true cost and proceeds. So I always like to walk families through a side-by-side financial breakdown for each option. And let's go through a sample right now. So no matter if you're planning on selling a traditional sale or in the open market, selling your inherited property to a cash buyer or keeping it as a rental, it is essential to run the numbers before making any big decisions. For each scenario, you'll want to determine your likely sales price, factor in any real estate commissions, which, as you know, can run to 5 to 6%, estimates needed for repairs costs. You want to factor that in. So get as many estimates as you can on repairs for the large items. Add up your carrying costs like taxes and insurance, your mortgage, and then calculate those final closing costs when you sell. Closing costs can be anywhere from 2 to 4%. This should give you your net proceeds, what each heir will actually walk away with after all expenses are paid and said and done. Now, this is where families often get surprised, especially after accounting for things like back taxes, liens, and capital gains if the property has appreciated. Take a look at the screen for an example breakdown and remember, seeing the real numbers side by side is the best way to make a smart, drama-free decision about your inherited property here in Tennessee. So when some heirs want to keep the property and others want to sell, a buyout arrangement could work perfectly and help you avoid a drawn-out legal battle that no one wants. Here's how Tennessee inherited property buyout process works and what you absolutely need to consider if you're thinking about going this route. Step 1, get a certified appraisal. Start by bringing in a professional appraiser to determine the fair market value of the home. And don't forget contents of the house, furniture, valuables, anything that may be worth something, and anything that could be inventoried and valued as a part of the estate. This will ensure that everyone is working from the same unbiased number, and it will prevent arguments later on about whether the buyout price is fair or what the home value is. Step 2, calculate each heir's share. Figure out each heir's ownership percentage, which is usually spelled out in the will or determined by Tennessee intestate succession law. So if there's a mortgage or other debts tied to the property, those need to be factored in before dividing the equity. Step 3, agree on the buyout price. Using the appraised value, calculate what each selling heir should receive for their share. For example, if the property is worth $180,000 and there are 3 heirs, then each share would be $60,000 minus any other outstanding debts or liens. Step 4, secure financing the buyout. So if the heir who wants to keep the property has the cash, then great. They can pay the others directly and it can be a done deal. But if not, then they will need to secure a mortgage or an estate loan or financing to cover the buyout, even if that's getting private money or having their uncle lend to them. But lenders will look at the appraised value and the heir's creditworthiness just like any other home purchase if they're going through a traditional loan. Step 5, draft and sign legal documents. Work with the Tennessee real estate attorney to draft a buyout agreement and handle the deed transfer. This step is critical. Do not rely on handshake deals or verbal promises, even if that's a family member that you know, love, and trust. The attorney will make sure all the paperwork is correct, the title is clear, and the transfer is properly recorded with the county. Step 6, transfer ownership and settle up. Once the buyout funds are distributed, the selling heirs sign over their interest in the property to the buying heir, making them the sole owner. The new deed is filed with the county and everyone receives their share of the proceeds. I can remember one house that we bought in Chattanooga maybe 2 years ago from a family who inherited $180,000 house, not a small house, right? 2 heirs wanted out, but one wanted to keep it as a rental. They wanted to make this their first investment property and kind of get their foot in the game of real estate. And we got a professional appraisal on the house, calculated the shares, and the one keeping the house paid the other two $60,000 each for their interest. Now, this appraisal allowed them to avoid court and opinion-based arguments over price. And here are some final tips. If the buying heir can't secure financing and the rest of you are willing to consider selling the property and splitting the proceeds instead, always factor in any existing mortgages, liens, or unpaid property taxes before finalizing that buyout price, so you know exactly what you'll be walking away with. Often communication is key. Make sure all heirs understand the process and agree to terms before moving forward. A buyout done correctly can help you bypass the stress, costs, and delays of a forced sale or partition action. Getting a professional appraisal and legal help the right way is always going to be in your best interest. So no matter how well you plan and despite your best efforts, sometimes inherited property situations can still explode. And here's how you can minimize the damage. Before anyone files that partition action or drags the family into court, insist on professional mediation. Tennessee has a roster of seasoned mediators who specialize in inheritance disputes, and they often know the local judges and court tendencies. Ask for a mediator with probate and real estate experience, because not all mediators understand the nuances of inherited property law. But before meeting with them, request a pre-mediation statement where each heir submits their position in writing before the session. So this keeps the first meeting focused and productive. You should use mediation to address non-monetary issues mainly. So sometimes the real sticking point for heirs is sentimental items or value, not just the physical house itself. A skilled mediator can help craft creative solutions like rotating family holiday use or dividing personal property separately. And you can rest assured what's said in the mediation room stays in the mediation room, unlike in court where everything you say becomes public record. So if you've ever tried to sell an inherited property in Tennessee with multiple heirs, then you know it only takes one stubborn holdout to grind everything to a complete halt. Maybe they want more money, maybe they're emotionally attached, or maybe they just don't want to cooperate because they're upset. Here's how I've helped families break through the deadlock using a mix of practical strategies and a few pro moves you won't hear from other attorneys or even real estate agents. Number 1, quantify the cost of delay. So don't just tell the holdout heir that they're costing everyone money and time. Actually show them. I create a detailed spreadsheet that tracks every dollar lost every single month, property taxes, insurance, utilities, mortgage insurance, maintenance, and even lost market appreciation or declining home values, which we're definitely seeing in today's market. When heirs see in black and white that every month of indecision is burning through their inheritance, it often changes the conversation. Number 2, use a reverse offer or a Dutch auction. So here's a trick that we've tried using in the past to some success. Let the holdout heir name their price to be bought out. So if the other heirs agree, great, they pay for it, right? But if not, the holdout heir must buy out the others at the same price. This forces them to put their money where their mouth is, and it flushes out anyone who's serious about actually keeping the property instead of selling it. Number 3, leverage a partition threat, but use it wisely. Sometimes the mere threat of a partition action where the court forces a sale, usually at a discount, and there's those hefty legal fees, is enough to bring a holdout heir to the table. Have your probate attorney send a formal letter outlining the real costs and risks of going down that road. That usually gets a couple responses. Number 4, bring in a neutral third party. So sometimes family members just can't hear it from each other, right? I mean, we get that. We all listen to each other a certain way, but bringing in a neutral tenancy probate attorney or a mediator or even a trusted family friend to explain the options and the consequences can potentially break through the emotional barriers and help everyone see the bigger picture. Number 5 is a court-ordered mediation. So in some Tennessee counties, you can actually ask the judge to require mediation before a partition action proceeds. This order requires the parties in the legal disputes to participate in mediation before the court will move forward with hearings or make a final ruling. This keeps everyone out of the court and the public record, and often leads to creative solutions that tend to work for everyone. Number 6, estate account transparency. So if you're the executor, open up a dedicated estate account for all property-related taxes and proceeds. Share regular statements with all the heirs so everyone sees exactly what's going on and where the money is going. Now, this builds trust and is going to make it harder for a holdout to claim financial misjudgment. Everything is laid out on the table. Number 7, professional appraisal and buyout offers. So get a professional appraisal, please, for the love of God, not just a Zillow estimate. A formal third-party value gives everyone a fair starting point for negotiations and buyout discussions, especially if the holdout thinks that the property is worth more than what it actually is. Number 8, written communication only. When emotions run high, insist that all negotiations and offers are made in writing, whether that's email or a letter, or even a shared online folder. Heck, even texts work. Just make sure that you try to avoid the he said, she said confusion and create a paper trail if things get legal. The earlier you address the holdout heir, the better. The longer that you wait and ignore the problem, the more entrenched they become and the more money everyone ends up losing. I have seen mediation resolve issues that honestly seemed hopeless. Last year, we had a family in Knoxville that was ready for partition action, and after 18 long, arduous months of arguing and fighting one mediation session, they were able to reach an agreement in just 6 hours. Mind-blowing. They spent around $1,500 to $3,000 instead of the $15,000 or more they would have burned for a partition sale. If you're stuck, don't be afraid to bring in a real estate professional or a probate attorney who has handled these situations before. Sometimes just knowing there's a process and a deadline is enough to get everyone moving. And when heirs won't even talk to each other, inherited property disputes can spiral quickly. Restoring communication is always of the utmost importance, even if it's for the sake of just getting things moving again and just getting to a resolution so you all don't have to focus on this property any longer. Use intermediaries. Bring in neutral parties like trusted family members, experienced probate attorneys, or professional mediators who specialize in tenancy inheritance disputes. These intermediaries can act as buffers, facilitating calm, productive conversations and help clarify misunderstanding that fuel conflict between each other. Sometimes those face-to-face conversations or phone conversations can trigger emotional reactions that make progress almost impossible. I've seen this happen firsthand, and again, it is really, really sad to see, but it's totally normal amongst family. So trying to communicate through written words like thought out emails, formal letters, when you have time to digest and re-review what you've written can help dismember those arguments. And between family members, it can potentially remove triggers. It's best to create a clear record of discussions so you can both reduce misinterpretations. And another thing you could possibly do is meeting heirs one-to-one, which will allow you to understand their specific concerns and their specific motivations and even their fears without the pressure of group or family dynamics, especially with an heir that you feel close to and you already have that open line of of communication. At least you can uncover their hidden issues, you can try to build trust, and the combination of multiple heirs can help make it easier to bring everyone back to the table later. If mediation isn't moving the needle in your tenancy probate dispute, then it's time to consider two powerful alternatives: collaborative law and arbitration. Collaborative law involves each heir hiring specifically trained attorneys who commit to negotiate a settlement outside of court, with an agreement that if all talks fail, those attorneys must withdraw from litigation. This creates a strong incentive for everyone, lawyers included, to negotiate in good faith and find creative, mutually acceptable solutions. Collaborative law brings in neutral financial advisors or mental health professionals to help address both the money and the emotional issues that can stall progress. This process keeps discussions private and focused on problem solving rather than winning. Arbitration, on the other hand, is more formal but still private, which is a huge benefit. All the heir agrees to submit their dispute to a neutral arbitrator, often a retired judge or an experienced estate attorney or probate attorney, who hears both sides and then issues a binding decision. Much like a private judge, arbitration is faster and less costly than a full court trial, and the collaborative law process is also confidential. Any heirs or any parties can agree to arbitration at any point, and if the court may also suggest it if litigation seems likely. So if you're stuck after mediation, ask your probate attorney if these alternative dispute resolution options are a good fit for your family and your family situation. All right, now let's dive deeper into some advanced strategies for handling those really complex tenancy inherited property situations. Because let's be honest, sometimes just selling the house isn't the answer, especially when multiple heirs are involved. First up, the LLC solution. If your family wants to hold on to the property long term, but you know you need some serious structure to avoid future headaches, forming a tenancy LLC is one of the smartest moves that you can actually make. Now, here's how it works. All heirs become members of the tenancy LLC, owning shares proportional to their inheritance. Then you draft up a detailed operating agreement that lays out exactly how the decisions get made, who manages the property, how the profits are split, and what happens if someone just wants to cash out later. Now, this isn't just about paperwork, it's about your family's playbook to avoid fights down the road. Plus, by using an LLC, you get liability protection and some tax advantages that can really add up over time. And do not forget, you want to hire a professional property manager to handle all the day-to-day stuff. Trust me, if you can afford it, this saves you from a lot of stress and helps keep the property in good shape over the years, most especially if you're out of state. Next, let's talk about this staged sale strategy. So maybe your family isn't ready to make a final call on selling or keeping the inherited property. Here's a smart compromise. Rent it out for a year and see how that goes. You generate income, you can cover your expenses, hopefully, give everyone time to adjust emotionally, and after that first year or so, you should regroup and evaluate the market conditions and how everyone felt about owning a rental. Then by year 3, if it goes that long, you guys can make a final decision. Keep it as a rental or decide to sell it, whether that's to a cash buyer or on the market. This approach can help ease the pressure, especially for heirs who are emotionally attached, while still keeping your options open. Now, what if all of the heirs are spread over the country? Well, this is super common with tenancy inherited property, and it definitely complicates things, but here is my best tips to keep things simple. Hold family meetings via video conference so everyone can participate without traveling to them, even if that's across the state. Hire a local property manager right away to handle maintenance, tenant issues, or showings. Use digital documentation signing platforms so no one has to be physically present to sign papers. We use DocHub or DocuSign. And appoint one local person as the go-to for property issues. This will keep communication clear and avoid confusion, and that person is going to be most easily accessible to the property anyway. And here's the golden rule. No matter what you decide, document everything. Use a family agreement template that covers how decisions will be made going forward, who's responsible for what expenses, how you'll communicate as a group, what happens if there's a disagreement, and clear exit strategies for those heirs who want out later. This kind of structure is not just paperwork, it's peace of mind, I promise you. It protects your family, inheritance, and your relationships from the kind of disputes that can drag on for years. And let me leave you with this story. I remember sitting across from the table, two siblings clutching their coffee mugs who were determined to keep their mom's house, and two of them who were dialing in from out of state on Zoom who were worried about their own bills piling up and really wanted to sell the property. The tensions were super high, even with two of them being on Zoom, and it felt like every conversation could tip into an argument at any moment. But step by step, we worked through it. First, I spoke to each sibling individually, just listening without any pressure or any family input or anyone else listening. And then we put real numbers onto paper, so what everyone could see was truly at stake. We enlisted a mediator guiding us through our tougher talks, and eventually, in a few weeks' time, the family found common ground. Now, in the end, the local siblings who lived here in Tennessee bought out the out-of-state siblings, and they ended up moving into the family and keeping the property for many years to come. Every heir was able to walk away with what they needed from the house without having to engage in crazy, drawn-out courtroom drama. So if you're finding yourself in the middle of a family dilemma with an inherited house that you just inherited, or you've been going through it for a while, something that's been going through the probate process, maybe you're the one who wants to keep the house, or maybe you're the one who wants to move forward. Either way, we certainly can help you. I have seen families just like the one that we mentioned time and time again with their own hopes for the inherited property, with their own hurdles, but some way we always find a way with a little bit of guidance to get to a resolution. And that wraps up this video, guys. And I'll see you in the final video where we're talking about the fastest way to sell your Tennessee inherited property, whether that's through cash buyers or traditional home sales with a realtor. We'll see you there.